Deputy Chief of Operations with the Quincy Police Department. And my experience with active shooting, that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, is primarily active shooting and what to expect from the Quincy Police Department when you call us, whether it's an active shooting incident or some other emergency you call us for. Before I get started, though, I know we've got at least a couple of retired law enforcement officers in here. Do we have any active law enforcement officers in here? 1, 2, 2. And retired? Retirees? You got any retired? We're back over here, Eddie. And I think we've got an attorney in here, too. Do we have more than one attorney? Oh, you got two. Just we're going to change this one. All right. As I mentioned, when it comes to active shootings, I got a little bit of experience with that because in the year 2000, I started the program for the Quincy Police Department in our training. I was our lead instructor for several years in rapid response to active shooting incidents. And in fact, we do our training periodically. Normally we go to different schools and do it. We did one time here at the Crossing so that we can kind of get used to the building and how it's laid out, that sort of thing. But when we think about active shootings, what we think about is somebody walking in and just shooting a lot of people. And that goes into what the definition of an active shooting is. An active shooting is a shooting where there are multiple victims or at least multiple victims available. If you go into a room this size, quite frankly, if somebody came in here with enough rounds, they could probably take care of all of us before the police could show up. We need to have at least enough victims that this is still an ongoing thing when the police arrive. If somebody comes in here and they shoot one person because they don't like them, it's a shooting, but it's not necessarily an active shooting because it's all over as soon as they shot the person they didn't like. So those are some things to keep in mind. If you hear shots fired at any time, don't try to determine whether it's an active shooting or what. Just worry about reporting it as a shooting. Another thing to keep in mind too, just because somebody comes in and they're shooting doesn't mean that it stays an active shooting. An active shooting can turn into a hostage situation pretty easily just by somebody deciding I don't want to shoot anybody anymore, but I don't want to get shot either, and they grab a hostage. And we, in fact, train in that in our scenarios with the police department in case that kind of thing happens, because it could happen. In any emergency, whether it's a shooting or anything else that happens, and I know it's already been touched on, but the first thing you need to do is what?
Call 911.
Exactly. Call 911. Get some help on the way before you ever engage anybody or try to do anything. If you jump into it, now you get compromised and there's nobody there to call for help. Now you just made the situation worse by not getting somebody else coming to help you. And to some extent, you know, if you hear shots fired, one of the probably the last things you'll want to do is run towards those shots. Now that's different than what we teach police officers. We teach them when they get here and they hear shots to go towards the shots. But you're going to be in a situation where you're unarmed and you're not going to be able, you don't have a ballistic vest on, you don't have other tools, you don't maybe have a pistol and a rifle to try to confront somebody. You're unarmed and you've got somebody who not only is armed, but they're showing that they want to use force against people. So one of the worst things for you to do is to run towards them and try to stop them. Now, if you're sitting at this table and the guy comes in and he starts going down the line, and you're sitting here, you know you're up next, that's a little different story. You know, maybe then you might want to try to do something because you're going to get it anyway. But you want to keep that kind of thing in mind. The risk-reward for stopping an active shooter, the reward for stopping one, of course, is you may be saving other lives. But the risk is, if you get yourself hurt, now you've got nobody, the other people that aren't shot yet, have nobody to help get them out of there. They have nobody to help tell them what to do, where to go. That's kind of the way I see your role in this, is shots are being fired, there's going to be a lot of pandemonium, people are running around, they don't know what to do, and you're there to try to provide some guidance for them, calm them down, and get them to safety. And there are two ways to look at the safety of the people that you're dealing with. One is to try to get them out of the building, evacuation. That may be appropriate. For instance, somebody came in here and started shooting. We got a couple exit doors here. People may be able to run out and get out of here and get away from the shots and be safe. The other thing to think about, though, this building is big and it's got a lot of rooms, a lot of areas where you can lock down and do what they call shelter in place. You can get people to a place of safety and lock them down. And when you do that, there are, of course, some common sense guidelines, some things to think about once you get into a room. Number one, you're going to need to know what rooms are available to you. Number two, you're going to need to know how to secure those rooms. I know a lot of these doors will lock, I think, with an Allen key, is that right?
Regular key.
Oh, regular keys, okay. So you're going to need to know how to lock that room from the inside. If not, you're going to need to think about barricading the door, keep them out. But not only do you need to keep them physically out of the room, but you need to discourage them from coming in, or at least not encourage them. And what's encouraging for a shooter who wants a lot of victims? Wants to know where the victims are, right? So you may want to put something to block the windows. If there are shades or blinds, pull shades and blinds in the room, that kind of thing. And what I see as a big concern in the event of an active shooting is the noise. Because what's the first thing everybody's going to do, especially if they start to feel a little bit safe, what are they going to do? They're going to start talking. Now, hopefully they're just texting, but if they get on the phone and they're talking, and now you got a room full of people that you're trying to keep safe and quiet, and they're all on the phone talking to somebody, you know, let them know they're safe, or somebody hears about it on the radio, so they call them because they know they were at church that day and they were shooting at church. You get all these people on the phone. Now you're just telling the bad guy, hey, there's a bunch of people in here because he can hear them. So it'll be your job to try to keep it quiet, and that may be very difficult, frankly. So we talked a little bit about evacuation, a little bit about locking down, and I think Sonny may at some point today or in the future get into some of the details about lockdowns. And I mentioned risk-reward. The reward of stopping an active shooter may be saving lives, but the risks involved of trying to intervene in something like that will go beyond what I just mentioned, which was, I talked a little bit about, once you do that, you may not only get yourself hurt, but now you got more people hurt because they didn't have anybody to help them. Not only do you have the physical issues, your loss of life or serious injury that may happen to you, the loss of life or serious injury that may happen to other people because of the actions you took or didn't take. But you've got other issues to be concerned with too. That would be medical bills, possible lawsuits that may come about because of the actions you took or you didn't take. So one thing I think is very important when it comes to any kind of an incident like this is to do a little bit of role playing in your own mind. And on those days when you're working security and maybe you're standing in the back of the church and you're looking out over the congregation, think about it. What would I do if this guy over here just all of a sudden jumped up with a gun and took off and went up towards the front, towards the pastor? What am I going to do? What should my first thing be? And then what should my second thing be? And just kind of run through some of that stuff. If all of a sudden these people all on this part of where I'm standing start to run towards me and I got this horde of people running towards me because this guy started firing shots, what am I going to do with those people? How can I try to tell them where to go? Where would I take them if I could? Would I usher them out to the side door? Would I take them out to the lobby and try to find a room that we could lock down? What am I going to do at that point? And just periodically run through that kind of stuff in your mind. Because what that does is that helps you make better decisions when the time comes. When the time comes for you to have to make a decision, you're not standing going, okay, now wait a minute, what did they say that day? What did the manual say on that page? I don't remember. Instead, you've gone through it in your mind and you think, okay, I need to do this or this, and that one's not going to work, so I'll do plan B. But you've already got some stuff going in your mind before that happens. Excuse me. And a couple other things to think about as well. When the police arrive, what do you think? If you put yourself in the shoes of a police officer who arrives, they come here to the crossing because they were called here for an emergency. What is something you might want when you get here?
Identify yourself.
Exactly. They want to know who you are, and they may not. Now, I don't know if you're going to have any kind of identification. Will you have, Sonny, you're going to have like shirts or badges or anything, or not?
We've talked about that a little bit. Didn't know if it was better to have that or not because it puts a target on you, kind of thing. And
right.
So I think our plan was to not necessarily do that.
And then I personally, I agree with that. But,
okay.
But so in that case, then you've got nothing identifying you visibly. So the police officer shows up, you're just somebody else standing here in the church. So one of the first things you may want to do is approach the officer with your hand showing and let them know, hey, I'm with the church security. Is there anything I can do to assist you? If they tell you no, then fine. They may ask you questions. If it's an active shooting and they come in and you tell them that, they may want to know, did you hear shots? Where did you hear the shots coming from? Did you see the shooter? What did the shooter look like? There may be questions like that. And so in that regard, I want to tell you something that, that a lot of our officers look at when they're off duty. If they're off duty and there's some serious incident, one of the first things they're going to want to do is be a good witness. And that would go the same for you. Be a good witness. If you see something, you hear something, think about what I just saw. Where did I see it? You know, you see the guy running, try to get an idea of what he's wearing, how tall he is, that kind of thing. Get those details in your mind so that if you can communicate that with someone later who can come and address the problem, you've got the information to give them. So that's one thing. They're not going to know you when they come in. The other thing is there may be police officers in the congregation who are armed, and an active shooting starts, they may engage the suspect. Now, like I said, most times we're going to want to be a good witness. But if they're in a position where they can try to stop the shooter with their own gun, they may do that. But you're not going to recognize them maybe either if you don't know them already. All of a sudden you see one guy with a gun and he comes out and starts shooting, and now another guy with a gun comes out and starts shooting. You maybe don't want to tackle the second guy. I mean, maybe you do, but maybe you don't too, because it might be an officer who's trying to deal with the first threat. So just some other things to keep in the back of your mind. All right, and with that, that's really all I've got on this particular subject. Does anybody have any questions?
I got one.
Sure.
Like the way our church is set up, there's like no rooms, it's just one big open area. How do you deal with that? That's
That's a good question. I would say probably, I mean, not knowing, what church are you with?
Hannibal.
You're in Hannibal? Okay. And you've got nowhere then, do you have any areas that would lock that you could take people in? Yeah, so your best bet, in that case, I'm sure would be evacuation, try to get them out. But that's another thing, and that's a good point on evacuation, something I didn't cover. When you get people out, you don't want to just open the door and let them run out. Tell them where to go. Tell them something to do. Because what you don't want to do is two things. Number one, you don't want them congregating out in the parking lot and just moving the target from inside to outside. And the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want them all going out and running their cars. And now you got a big parking jam because people are trying to get out of there as fast as they can, maybe hitting each other. They can't get out. And now you just put the targets in cars for the shooter. So if you're going to evacuate, it sounds like that's probably your best response would be try to get them out of there if you can. Tell them where to go. Tell them what's close. I don't know what might be close to you, but you might say, get down to the convenience store. You know, you might tell them, run to Walmart. That's quite a ways to go, but it keeps them focused on something to get them far enough away that they're away from the action. So.
I would say security teams ought to sit down and discuss this when they get back to their campuses,
Yeah.
scenarios, where to go, what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you can, maybe as a group at your campus, try to run through some scenarios. You know, what would happen? Where would you go? Where would I be? That kind of thing. Try to work through what I was talking about doing in your mind before. Initially, you may want to sit down as a group and do that like a group exercise, tabletop. Any other questions?